This is Joel, and it is October 29th, 1957, and we are at Haliko. That is our home out here in Hawaii. And we are starting a work today that has long been necessary, but which has awaited the proper hour and setting. In order for the message of the Infinite Way to continue as an experience in the future, it must be understood from the nature of its origin and its operation, and there must also be provided the means and the persons through whom this activity is to be continued on a worldwide scale, as long as there is a response to its message. For 11 years now, I have watched students come to this work, and students go from it, and sometimes those who have gone from it return. But out of the 11 years of work, there are some who have come and who have never left it. And in the years in which they have been a part of the work, they have become set aside because of their work, and thereby become a part of what I shall hereafter call our inner working group. In 1950, when I was left as an individual without any human help, the work was carried on as a purely one-man work, with the occasional help of a stenographer when the going was too heavy. But soon thereafter, Emma came into the picture, helping with the organization and starting and experimentation of the tape work, and then gradually took over the letter department and the banking department and the tax department, until I was completely free and able to travel whenever and wherever the call came. And thus came the first of the workers who have been very close to me from that time until the present, and with every indication that this will be a permanent relationship both here and hereafter. Olney Flynn had come into the picture as a student back about 1948 or 1949, coming from Oklahoma to California for classes, and then, together with his wife, Aileen, appeared with us in all of our classwork, wherever held, all the way from California to New York, and from New York back to Hawaii, and again to California or Chicago or the Northwest, wherever it might be. And there has never been a break in the continuity of Olney's work or of his active support of this activity in every possible way. Eileen Bowden came into the picture about 1949 through my work in Victoria, Canada, Vancouver, and then over into Seattle and Portland. And her part of the work has been primarily the spiritual support and the opening of the work in and around Victoria, and engaging in the healing activity, and of course with a great amount of work in the direction of imparting of spiritual truth to children. Floyd Nowell came into the picture in Hawaii, also back about 1951, and is one of those who has never wavered a step or a day, and who has been with me constantly. Almost every day that I have been in Hawaii, Floyd has been with me. Hours and hours and hours, many times, of each day, studying, imbibing, and now finally active in both healing and teaching. Lorraine Sinkler came into the picture in Chicago on my first visit there about 1949, and from the very moment of our meeting was touched by a spiritual experience which has brought her ever closer to the work, until eventually she was led to give up her entire life's work to devote all of her time and all of her experience, all of her activity to this Infinite Way work. And of course it is she who is editing our monthly letters and our published writings. The other is Daisy Shigemura, who also came into our work about 1949 on my first trip to Hawaii, and soon thereafter had a spiritual experience in meditation, and who at the present time is, and for some time past, has been active in healing work, and more especially imparting this particular message to those of the Japanese race. These whom I have mentioned are really the closest to me because of the opportunity I've had to be with them so much and they to be with me so much, and therefore given me the opportunity of observing the fact that in their lives nothing is important except living the life of spiritual illumination and imparting it to the world through the message of the Infinite Way. And so these constitute this inner group of workers, or inner working group. Since we cannot, all of us, be physically present with each other at all times, the work which we are starting today will be with Floyd Nowell and Emma. And insofar as it is possible, whatever takes place will be recorded, as this is being recorded, with the understanding that these tapes will be available only to those whom I have just mentioned, and with the further understanding that no one will be added to this group except in one of two ways. I myself can select out of the world anyone or as many as I feel and find ready to become part of this inner group. And aside from that, the only way that anyone can be admitted will be by the other members of this group unanimously inviting one or more into the group. This, of course, means that whoever is suggested must first of all be known to all of these who are part of the group, but must be personally known, and each one of this group must be personally convinced of the readiness of the one proposed to be accepted into the group, and in such case then a unanimous decision can result in inviting that one or those others to participate. Now, the reason for all this must be clear. There's only one reason that I occupy the position in the infinite way that I do. That is, that I am the author of the writings, the teacher of its principles, the traveler who has carried it into all of the Protestant world, and who has been entrusted with the responsibility of its activity, its financing, the drawing unto me those who were and are to assist in this work. Since I first received the unfoldment that resulted in the writing of the book, The Infinite Way, and the activity that has since followed, I am guided in everything, at all times, by something with a capital S, that is within the scope, the range of my own consciousness. I know that it seems strange at times that I never seek advice on anything, and on the few occasions when advice is offered, that I pay no more attention to it than a passing breeze. And it isn't because I feel that I know more than anyone else. It is only that insofar as it relates to the activity of the infinite way, I need no human guidance, because there is something within me that provides the advice, the guidance, the direction, and has shown itself capable of supporting the activity financially and drawing unto itself those workers necessary to be a part of it, not only in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, in South Africa, in Australia. Wherever the message traveled, it drew unto itself those necessary for its expression, and all of this accomplished by whatever it is within me that is responsible for the entire work. Now, first of all, I would like our inner group to realize this, perhaps to realize it more fully than they do at this moment, that I have never done anything of myself in connection with the infinite way, nor used my judgment or my opinion or my beliefs. That at all times there is something operating that guides and directs and leads, that gives me the words to say, the time to travel, and all that goes therewith. I might put it this way, that something drew Emma to me at a time when it seemed impossible to get this tape recording work started, a work which has proved its efficacy, which has proved its value, and yet I myself could not get it underway, and the people who started to help me with it in the beginning all fell away. And at a moment when I had little idea that such a thing could happen, and when I was in the last place in the world where one could expect it to happen, out in the Hawaiian Islands with no acquaintances, Emma was so drawn to this work that she quickly became a part of the tape work and ultimately worked out the whole solution to that work and was able to take over its responsibility. And I look upon this as the activity of this something within that is prospering the activity of the message of the infinite way. In this same way, Floyd was drawn into this work, and not only in the way that he himself could benefit, but that through his activity the infinite way drew unto itself the tremendous amount of help, sometimes financial, sometimes in moral support, sometimes in actual taking over of healing work and so forth, so that it is evident that again a stranger was drawn unto me out of this world. A stranger, one whom I had no way of knowing, and who himself had to be drawn to this work by some invisible thread. In the same way that now, when it is so evident that our writings must be properly edited for publication by responsible and worldwide known publishers, that Lorraine Sinkler, out of all the world, should be drawn to me from a world as far different from mine as the imagination can encompass, and yet without seeking her, and certainly she was not seeking me, but in her inner soul was seeking God or truth, and was incidentally, so it would outwardly seem, led to visit me while on a trip to Chicago. And out of that meeting, and just think, in the same day in which I met her, I must have met 50 others and had talks with each one of them. Out of all this, Lorraine has been drawn to where she is a most important part of this work, and to such an extent that our group must understand that regardless of any other circumstance, Lorraine must be kept at the editing of these writings until this also is an accomplished work. Now, I bring this point to light because I could go on also and tell you how, or rather tell you that Olney Flynn and Daisy Shigemura and Eileen Bowden are, in my consciousness, parts of this working group, and that they also have been drawn in the same invisible way to whatever work they are doing. Now, this is lesson number 1 in the mystical life. For until an individual arrives at that state of consciousness in which something within takes over, they are leading the ordinary human life in which their entire world is lived by virtue of their personal experience, their personal wisdom, their personal physical strength, and so forth and so on. Now, I have no way of knowing the nature of that something which governs my life and the activity of the infinite way. I could not say to you that this presence or these presences are persons. I cannot definitely say that there is a Jesus Christ or a Buddha or a Lao Tzu or a John, or whether or not this influence or these influences are God itself. Spiritually acting within me without mediation. In other words, I have no knowledge of any man or woman who ever lived upon the face of the globe who is consciously creating or spreading the message of the infinite way through me. I do know that there are spiritual activities taking place within me, and that these govern my experience. Certainly I know that I have been greatly influenced in the phraseology, in the voicing of the message by principles which are parts of such teachings as Lao Tzu or Zen or Shankara or the Gospel of John or the direct unfoldment of that mind which was also in Christ Jesus, or even principles which are enunciated in Hebrew mysticism, Christian mysticism, Oriental mysticism. Oh yes, I know that this literature has influenced the language of the infinite way, but not the principles themselves. The principles have been the direct result of inner unfoldment, not given to me by any man or woman of the present or the past. Yes, some of the basic principles in the Ladder of Truth were learned in Christian Science and must be credited to Mrs. Eddy. For all of us must somewhere have our eyes opened, and often that awakening comes from something said or written by the great mystics of the world. Without any question of doubt, my whole attention was drawn to the fact that in spiritual living and in spiritual healing, the major factor must be an understanding of the nature of error and what to do about it. the acknowledgement that God is all, which we all know to be true in its spiritual sense, the dependence upon God, which in a religious sense has wrecked most of the world, the longing for God, the search for God, none of these things have resulted in bringing about spiritual harmony into the lives of individuals, or in attaining a healing consciousness, so much as that which has been unfolded to us from the beginning, received by us in Christian Science, of this nature of error. And here we come to what I might call lesson number 2, although I will not continue to number these lessons, but let them follow automatically as they may, and without relationship to their importance to each other, or the order in which they come. It is not possible to know God in any way that the mind can conceive. In other words, we can never see, hear, taste, touch, or smell God, nor can we reach God with the reasoning mind or the thinking mind, or by a reasoning process or an analytical one. In other words, to human sense, God is unknowable. Therefore, it behooves us to give up the attempt to reach God, to find God, or to know God in any human way. So the question then comes, then in what way can God be known? The answer is, God can only be known through the faculties of the soul when these are awakened and opened in an individual. Now, there is no other way. God will never be known to man through the 5 physical senses or the mind of man. And therefore, and this that I say, of course, is the result of experience, not hearsay, God may be known through the soul faculties when they are awakened and aroused in an individual. The next question is, how do we attain that opening whereby we may know God, whereby we may experience God? And the answer is that by our study of Scripture and truth, the writings of the Infinite Way, even though this study is conducted with the mind, we are led to the practice of meditation. Between the study of the written and spoken word and inner meditation, we are led to a state which may be called communion with God, in which inwardly we feel that there is actually a presence of God within us and ourselves in a communion with each other, as if there were a feeling going back and forth, as if there were a presence to which we could speak and say, Father, illumine me. Father, reveal thyself to me. Father, open my inner awareness. Give me ears with which to hear. Give me eyes with which to see. And often a response will come from that withinness. And thereby we know that we are in a state of communion with God. You see here, there is two-ness. There is individual you or me, and there is a presence sensed within, felt within. It may even be a feeling of love, warmth, gentleness, peace within. And in this state we are in communion. Now, at that stage, we are, or rather the soul consciousness, the soul faculties are partly opened. At least they are opening. They must be opening to attain a state of actual communion, experienced communion. And then the continuing in the hearing of the Word and the reading of the Word and the meditation and the communion leads to that final step of union with God, conscious union with God. Oh yes, you will remember that at all times the relationship of God the Father and God the Son being one is established, has been established from the beginning, and will be unto the end of time. But it is only in the degree of our conscious communion with God, and finally our conscious union with God, that this oneness is realized in experience and demonstrated in the harmonies of our experience. Now in this, you see, we have not depended on any God for anything, nor looked to any God for anything. And hereby we have learned another of our great principles, and that is, God cannot give us anything or impart anything to us. For literally there is nothing but God. And so it is that the people of the world defeat their own purpose when they seek harmonies in their experience, when they go to God for health or wealth or opportunity or home or companionship. They lose out. The only possible attainment is the attainment of communion with God and ultimately union with God. Having attained that realization, the infinity which God truly is ours. And then all of the light of God, all of the guidance and direction, support, supply, maintenance necessary to our experience unfolds naturally through the relationship of conscious communion and conscious union with our source, the kingdom of God within our own being. Now you can see how foolish it is to seek advice any more than it is to seek dollars. You say, we need dollars? Yes. You say, we need advice? Yes. Both on the human plane. When you see this vision, you will know that you need only one thing: your conscious communion with God, your conscious realization of God, your conscious oneness with God, and then you literally demonstrate in some measure Paul's statement, I live, yet not I, Christ liveth in me. This spiritual presence liveth in me. This spiritual power goes before me to make the crooked places straight. This literally has been my experience in the message of the infinite way, as those of you close around me have seen. You know that I have had no human background to draw upon, no human wealth to draw upon, no human wisdom to draw upon, but yet you have seen that in every necessary experience there has been something take place which outwardly manifested as the right thing done at the right time, the right person drawn unto this work at the right time, the right amount of dollars drawn into this work at the right time. Never for selfish purposes, for then you break the contact with your invisible source. Now, you who start with me in this inner group must understand that your individual goal must be to live each day so that you do attain the inner guidance to all of your affairs. Otherwise, you are not only less fitted to govern your personal lives, business, families, but completely, totally unfit to have any say in the direction of the message of the infinite way. For this is not a matter of human wisdom or human opinion, but for a direct spiritual guidance which may sometimes contradict everything that is sensible in the outer world or in the outer scheme of things. Vision, spiritual vision, is what you must have, and a help in attaining it is being certain every single day that no selfish motive guides you. If you have a single thing in mind other than the ultimate activity of the infinite way and its promotion, you will forfeit the very thing you are seeking. For no one can boast in the Lord, no one can brag of their contact with God, nor believe for a moment that God selects them for special favors, or that God's grace is for personal glorification. If it isn't clear to you that it is the infinite way itself which must eventually do its work in the world, that even those who are attracted to this message are not for our personal glory, and the dollars that are attracted to it are not to be spent on our personal whims or human living, except to the extent that in showing forth God's glory, it is naturally manifested in the right sense of home or the right sense of economic security. But this is far different from feeling that money belongs to us personally, or that withholding any part of what we have in some way enriches us or protects us in the future. Remember, we are enriched only in the degree of our conscious union with God. We are protected only, whether it's the present or the future, by the realization of our constant relationship with God. Therefore, we do not speak so much of God, since we know that God is not to be known in our human experience, but in teaching we speak of the nature of God, since it is possible by the fruitage of God's activity in this world to know that the very nature of God must be an infinite intelligence. The very nature of God must be a divine love. These must be the two outstanding qualities or properties which constitute God being. And therefore, in that realization, even though only humanly realized, we can sufficiently relax our fears, our concerns, so that that which we have called the Christ, or the Spirit of God in us that governs, guides, leads, directs, supports, maintains, sustains, that it may at all times be in conscious, functioning, focus, activity. It is a safe guide to ask yourself, when any question arises, is this for which I am going to God something for my personal benefit, my personal glory, my personal profit, my personal ambition, my personal self? And then quickly the false sense of self will drop away, and you will realize that there is no power of receiving God's grace for personal glorification or profit. In this way, then, you are fitted to govern the affairs of the infinite way. For you see now that we set the stage only to meet an immediate need, realizing that as situations change, God provides the answer with which to meet those changes. Therefore, in setting our infinite way stage, we recognize that I, Joel, as long as I can function in this capacity, will continue to function. That in the normal course of events, Emma will take my place as executive director of the entire work, feeling, however, that she has the benefit of Lorraine, of Floyd, of Eileen, of Daisy, in upholding her hand spiritually, morally, financially if necessary, and in the fulfillment of the different functions which they may at any given time be performing. As I have said, Lorraine at the present time editing, Floyd at the present time teaching, healing. All of this, you must remember, may change at any moment, and Floyd may have some other activity, and Lorraine some other activity, and so I am not trying to govern the infinite way from the grave or from retirement. I'm merely trying to outline how this inner group shall serve the infinite way in the capacity of each at any given time, and also to provide that those who comprise this group shall have the privilege of adding to it, not only for the purpose of our spiritual unfoldment, but for its continuity and progression. Now, there is a major reason why this work has been started today. This that I have outlined above, that pertains to the idea of continuity and succession, is only a secondary motive in preparing this tape. The main motive was in giving you these spiritual principles to serve as a basis for your demonstration and the demonstration of the infinite way, and to lead up to this. Long years ago, I recognized that even though I should continue to sit in an office and heal 20 or 50 or 100 people a day for the rest of my days, that I would have made no dent in the sin, disease, and death of this world. A few individuals out of billions of individuals would have been temporarily benefited, and that's all. And so I knew that there was to be a deeper significance to my life, and that significance was given to me in 1946, when I received 2 months of daily inner initiation and illumination which started my activity in this infinite way. I knew then, and it was given me then, that my unfoldment was to be the bringing forth of those principles which would not merely heal individuals here and there, but which would remove sin, disease, death, lack, and limitation from off the face of the globe, or, to put it in the Master's way of speaking, to bring the kingdom of heaven on earth as it is in heaven, or to bring about the second coming of the Christ. These are merely religious terms describing what the state of consciousness on earth will be after the principles have been revealed and demonstrated, that removes material sense from the earth and thereby leaves the earth heaven. Remember that the earth, with material sense removed, is heaven, just as a human being with material sense removed is a spiritual being. A mortal who attains a realization of God's presence becomes the Son of God or an immortal. You are a mortal until the Spirit of God dwells in you. Then do you become the sons of God. So it is. Remove material sense from any individual, and you have removed the capacity to sin, to be sick, or to die. Remove material sense from this globe, and you will make impossible wars, bad competition, enmities, bigotries, and all of these conditions that heretofore have resulted in bad blood between humans on earth and ultimately wars of destruction. We then, in the infinite way, have been given certain principles whereby it is possible to destroy in a measure, at this time, material sense, and in my personal life and practice, I have demonstrated the ability to remove personal sense or dissolve it in individuals and in a measure in some major national and international affairs. Now, of course, I'm speaking only as a beginner, as one who has only seen the first faint glimpses. Sometimes I think of myself as the Wright brothers must have felt when their aeroplane flew 57 seconds. I am at that stage of spiritual development when I have brought about that much demonstration. And at that point, at this point where I am now, I'm saying to you that I know the principles whereby material sense is dissolved as completely, as surely as the Wright brothers knew the principles of flying when they flew 57 seconds. They knew the principle, but they had only demonstrated it up to 57 seconds, or they knew that with those same principles we would ultimately fly 1,000 miles an hour and keep it up forever if we wished to. And I know, with what grain I have seen, that the principle operates. I personally have only been able to operate it at that 57-second level. But I know that the principle in its completeness will be demonstrated to rule all material sense, mortal discord, off the face of this globe in proportion as we learn to practice, perfect ourselves, improve ourselves, spiritualize ourselves through the attainment of a higher spiritual consciousness than we have at this moment. Now, Emma and Floyd and I are starting a program of daily meetings. The first purpose of which is to attain within ourselves a greater degree and depth of spiritual consciousness, God realization, and to apply these principles as we understand them to the destruction of material sense, not merely in our individual lives or those of our patients or students, but now taking on a wider activity by going out into the field of world affairs and seeking to know what influence the application of these principles may have on such affairs. We made no conscious effort to carry our students through this many-month epidemic of Asian flu, and yet up to this moment I have not received from any of our students or any of our practitioners the word or any word that this epidemic has touched our circle of students in the United States or Canada. And so far as I know, England, Australia, and South Africa. If our circle has been at all touched, and I mean by that the entire student body of the Infinite Way, it must have been to such a small extent that no one single word of it has reached us here at headquarters, nor has a single call for help come from that particular claim. Now, this is exactly what I mean by the work that we are going to undertake. We did not consciously seek that particular demonstration, but as a result of that work which I have personally conducted for the entire activity of the Infinite Way around the globe, this has been the result. Now, what greater results may be achieved by this work which we now undertake will develop as we proceed. Naturally, our work here will be done in this atmosphere with the physical presence only of Emma, Floyd, and myself. However, as soon as you of this inner working group have copies of this tape and those that follow, you will undertake this work. Only, since each of you is in a different city, you will have to undertake it without help from any human. Your support will come to you from us over here in Hawaii, and we will specifically and consciously give to each of you in this group daily support, as you will learn to give us, so that eventually we will be united in this consciousness regardless of where we may physically be. You will select any hour of the day or night for this work that is most convenient to you, remembering that it must be at such a period when you are subject to the least disturbance, either from the noises of the world or of your family life. And it should be those periods of time to which you can dedicate yourself without hurry, without rushing. There is no specific length of time for the activity of this work, since no one knows how quickly you will attain that state of consciousness necessary for this work. We three will meet every day from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Honolulu time, and our work will be mostly conducted within that time, although there are evenings when we are together here, when at 10 or 11 o'clock at night we may resume for a second session. This will not be nightly, whereas the afternoon work will definitely be daily while we three are here together. There again, when we travel, Emma and I will conduct it wherever we are, and Floyd will conduct it wherever he is, and again, at such times as he has the greatest amount of freedom from outside interruption. Do not confuse this work that we are doing with the work of the 25, which is now being conducted, for that work is but a preliminary to this work which we are doing. Within the next few days, you will see in these tapes that we will be doing a specific work which at the present time could not be undertaken by a large group, for I would have no way of voicing to a large group that which is in my mind, and there would be no use of it until such time as we are so experienced and so proficient and can point to such definite specific successes that we will want to enlarge this group. You see now that we will enlarge this group after we have attained enough measure of success to warrant it, and then we will invite in those of that group of 25 who have demonstrated that they have been able to keep with that work and accomplish something from it. Though, of course, we will not be limited only to that group of 25. We will select wherever we find a dedicated state of consciousness, and each person has to decide for themselves what they consider dedicated. It is naturally understood that neither this tape nor any that follow in this series is to be heard by anyone outside of the individuals already named or those who may later be added to this group.